Hey there, my name is Fela Ebioye, and this is How to Corporate, my digital show about how successful professionals navigate career moves and money matters. Today's topic, how to negotiate your worth with my guest, Dr. Rochelle Parks-Yancy. So welcome back. Today's topic is, really an area that I've wanted to focus on for a while. It's a skill set that everybody should have at the end of the day, knowing your worth. It's a common phrase that's thrown around all the time, but do people really know how to apply your worth, right? And but never fear, How to Corporate is here, and I can't think of a better person to have this conversation with than the great Dr. Rochelle Parks-Yancy. She is a human resource professor. She is a career coach, a multi-book author, resume writer, fitness competitor, motivator. I can't think of all her titles. All right, I can't think of all her titles. She has a lot of them. So, but first and foremost, thank you, Dr. Yancy, so much for attending the podcast today to have this discussion. So, thank you so much. Appreciate you for sure. So I'll first just start to kick it off. I mean, Dr. Yancy, maybe you want to give the folks a little bit about your background as before we kind of get into the topic. Just talk a little bit about yourself.
So certainly a little bit about me is that, I'm very hard-headed. My parents always said that, and I learned everything the hard way. So most of the stuff that I talk about is because I learned it the hard way, but that's okay. So, obviously I specialize in human resources. Phil, I talked about, resume writing and all that sort of thing. But I do want to mention that I did not start off, I was always a business major, but originally I thought I was going to be a banker. I finished college, that I was going to be a banker, and, I worked in banking, and it was horrendous. I'm not criticizing the banking industry. I'm saying that it was horrendous for me. And I was paid very well. The money was good, right? But, at Fridays at 5 p.m., I felt like I was escaping a graveyard, only to go back to the graveyard again on Monday. So, and I knew, I just couldn't live like that anymore. So anyway, so I kind of fumbled around and I did like a lot of other things, and then I found out that, HR was kind of my area, specifically training, development, recruitment. And that was how, I got into that. But my whole point is that where you started is never where you have to end up. As far as I'm concerned, we can still be or do whatever it is we want to be or do up until, we're dead or we're in the hospital. And I'm not dead, I'm still not in the hospital. So, I'm all right. So,
Still living, still kicking.
Yeah. So that's really, about me. I'll talk about, some of my books and, and so on, later on. But just in terms of who I am, I'll just mention one thing. I totally believe that we are 100% responsible for our own career. I mean, Fela knows how I am about this. I don't believe in victimhood. Nobody's going to save you. No one's going to help you unless you're going to help yourself. You got to be willing to fight for what's yours. And fight doesn't mean necessarily aggressively. You have to know how to fight strategically. You cannot count on a company. I don't care what the company is. You can't count on a client to tell you what your worth is. You need to do your salary homework, and so we'll get into that to know what that range is. And there are a number of variables that go into that. And just to give you an example. So I was talking to a client yesterday and they were like, well, what do you think my resume suggests that I would be worth? And I'm like, I can't answer that question with any intelligence. I can make up a number that will make you feel good, but I'm not a liar and I'm not a damn liar. Then I'm not going to do that, So it's up to you. So to your point, it's up to you to know your worth. Don't count on a company to tell you. Because here's the thing. I'll give you just really quick example. You can think, well, okay, I'm worth 120 and 120,000 rather for a particular role. And a company's like, okay, we'll give you the 120. You know what that means? There was way more money on the table and you left it and it's your fault that you didn't go get it.
So to that point, right? I mean, I think sometimes folks are maybe a little scared, right, to even just push back, right? That push back on the needle to say, well, I mean, $120,000, that's a nice salary. That's good money. If they put it out there, I don't want to turn them off. I don't want to, I don't want to say, well, maybe I'm coming off too greedy, or maybe they say, oh, well, we can get the next person who's, for much cheaper or exactly at the price range that, we're trying to go for. I mean, I think there's a lot of folks who probably have that mentality. I mean, what would you say to those who may say, you know what, I don't really want to rock the boat here. I feel if I get that offer and maybe I've been out of work for 3, 4, 5, 6 months and it's exactly what I was thinking. I mean, what would you say to that? Is that a way are you cutting yourself short by doing so? Or is there a way to maybe come at it later on at a bite at the apple? I mean, what are your thoughts there? No, okay. Shaking your head. No.
That's a lie. So number one, here's the thing, and I'm saying this as a professor, college is a lie. All right. College will teach you that if you just do the right thing and you just work hard, everyone's going to recognize your value. That's a load of garbage. Okay. You don't get paid what you deserve. You get what you negotiate. So here's the deal. If you've been out of work a long time, I totally respect you taking whatever you got to do to pay some bills. But in the meantime, you keep looking for opportunities to value you. You know why? Because there's nothing worse, and I'm sure that, Phil, you've experienced, or I certainly have experienced, when you start a job, you're all excited. You may even be happy about the salary. Then you find out, oh, wow, I'm making like 30,000 less or whatever it is than someone else. But whose fault is it that you didn't ask for it? And people tend to blame the company and blame everybody else. But I don't blame people for what I did not ask for. That's my fault. See, I'm all in about doing what I can own. Right now, I do understand being afraid, like, well, if I ask for more, ask for what my worth is, they're going to walk away. Well, number one mistake people have is number one, they don't ask at all. There's always a range, always. Okay. But then number two, people, even if they do ask, as I said, they don't just do their homework. They just have pulled a number out of the air. Well, where did this number come from? What salary homework have you done on the back end to support what you're asking for on the front end, right? Then number three, they don't practice their salary negotiation verbiage and even in writing as well as verbiage, because it's practice. It is hours and hours and hours of practice. And then number two, I don't know. I mean, I don't feel like I was put on this earth to fit in with everyone else. I feel like I was put on this. I wasn't born. I'm going to quote Dr. Seuss. I put this on LinkedIn a lot. I wasn't born to fit in. I was born to stand out. And see, I believe that about you too. Not just Phil. I believe that about people. I communicate that to students. I communicate that to clients. That's who I am. So if a company is like, if you ask for anything remotely, if you've done all your homework and you ask for anything remotely relating to what you're worth, and they're like, ew, no. Well, you know what they're basically telling you? We don't value you. We want you to work like a dog for less money than you're worth. And you know what? They may sound good at first, but about a month later, you know what you're going to do? You're going to be thinking, you're going to be like, I am overworked and I am underpaid. And you're going to be mad, right? So, again, I understand taking a job, to pay some bills, but let's stop counting on these companies. Anybody, I don't care what the company is. I don't care if it's profit. I don't care if it's nonprofit. It does not matter. It is not their job to negotiate your top dollar. That is your job. And you're not going to learn that in school, well, unless you had me or Dr. Cooley. But otherwise.
You're right about that. You're right about that. No, I mean, I think that's well said, Dr. Yancy. Because like you said, it's, in school, we're taught that, this is the way things are, right? Like this is very structured. Is, just graduate, get a good job, or, I mean, and maybe not today, but I would say years ago, it was get a good job, stay with that company for 30 plus years, retire out, get your gold watch and call it a day. Right. So that's very different from today's environment. And I think honestly, what a lot of people are willing to do. I mean, people are willing to not only negotiate just, salary, but living arrangements. Right. I mean, we're in a pandemic now and people are living all over the globe. People are relocating and doing all these things and saying that, hey, look, why should I have to, live in some no-name town to work to do a job that I'm able to do from home? So I want to live in Mexico for a year or on a beach or whatever the case may be. So I think you made a lot of good points that at the end of the day, you got to be willing to have the confidence in yourself, right, to be able to push the needle to say, I deserve this, or I deserve that, or whatever the case may be. So, no, I think it's well said. Well said. So you kind of talked a little bit about some of the skill sets, right, that are kind of necessary to go through or to maybe beef up when it comes to negotiating. Could you maybe talk a little bit more about some of the skill sets you feel like are necessary to kind of have that confidence to even have that conversation?
Okay, so and to clarify, do you want me to actually go through the kind of salary negotiation strategies, or kind of first the sort of internal bolstering of yourself to even be able to do that in the first place?
Maybe start with just the internal piece, right? Because, how can you even go there without even having a skill set for yourself? So, I mean, you talked a little bit about practice, right? Practicing in front of a mirror or whatever, just things like that.
Okay. So, I mean, all of us feel fear about various things. I do no different, than anyone else. And I'm not saying this is what other people have to do. I'm saying you have to find the thing that works for you to bolster you. For me, you know what I do? I talk to Rochelle. Rochelle is one of my best friends. She is I'm serious. I am so serious about this.
I have no doubt.
She is my hardest manager. She is my biggest cheerleader. I hate Rochelle and I love Rochelle all at the same time. So
what's the name of that old song? Rochelle. What?
Yes, but I'm serious though. So when I'm feeling afraid, which I have many times and still do and fully expect to, what works for me is to talk to myself. And I literally will say to myself over and over again, Rochelle, other people have done this before. They are no smarter. They are no better than you. If they can do it, you can do it too. And for me, speaking it out loud, even as I'm dealing with whatever I'm dealing with, is what works for me. We can still move forward, even though we're afraid. So see, and what I don't like, I don't know if you tell me you've already got this, I don't like when people tell me not to be afraid. I feel like saying, F you, don't tell me how to feel. And I feel like you're minimizing how I feel. So I never tell people, I don't tell a student, I don't tell a client, I don't tell my son to be afraid. What I do say is that here are the actions that you can still take, even though you're afraid. I think there's too much focus on our feelings sometimes. And what I mean by that is you can feel afraid, but you can still do something even though you're afraid. I'm a parent. I was terrified to have a baby. Well, I did it.
Yeah.
My point is that I don't feel like fear is an excuse for you not to go forward and put your best brand forward. So I'm not telling you not to be afraid. I'm saying that you find whatever methods it is. For me, it's talking to myself, but you find your internal strategies to go forward, even though you're afraid.
No, that's an excellent point, Dr. Yancy. I think, like you said, it's, if we think about all the things in life that one could be afraid of doing, right? But you got to do anyway. So, but finding the confidence to do that, for me, it always felt like a lot of this stuff just really boils down to confidence, right? It's really confidence in oneself, confidence in the ability to do it. But pushing through without fear, having practice, having the conversations with yourself when you've rehearsed it several time and time again. You can only imagine how much better equipped you are with having that conversation with, with somebody else. So before, let's say, negotiating with, like maybe your existing employer, what type of research would you go about or recommend? And I guess as a follow-up, right, kind of the next part of the question, what kind of research would you recommend somebody do before the conversation, right? If you're about to go in and have this conversation to talk about salary or whatever you want to negotiate, like what kind of research would you want to go through?
Okay, so here are some things that people need to do. Number one, you need to know the dollar value of you. And so let me name some things. What are the dollar value of your education, your certifications, your skills, your knowledge abilities, your experience, your accomplishments for, and I'll name these 5 entities, for the job that you want or you have, or, whatever it is. Okay. Even if it's your current role. All right. And you're trying to negotiate a raise. The concept is still the same. Whatever the job it is that you want. All right. What is the value of for that job in that company, in that industry, in that city, in that state or country? Those 5. And I'll say them again. That job, that company, that industry, that city, that state or country. Because those variables all impact salary. They all impact pay. And just to give you an example, obviously, I live in the Houston area. So let's just take a marketing manager role in, I don't know, let's just say a large retail firm like a Walmart or Target or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. That may pay less than, say, an engineering firm, or a Shell or, oil and gas or something like that, because those roles just happen generally, I'm speaking general, pay more in this area, right, than, the Target, Walmart, and so on. So I can never comfortably, or not just comfortably, I won't ever say, well, for this job, you should definitely make this amount. That makes no sense if you have not done factored in those 5 variables that I just talked about. Okay. All right. So let me go on. Then you need to know all roles have what I call you need to know the high, the midpoint, the low, but then you also need to know your hell no. All right. So the high is, again, there's a range. So this is a big example. The easiest thing for me to do is to give an example of client, right? Mm-hmm. So that client, right? And so originally they were like, okay, this person is a VP of operations here in health. Okay. So they were like, well, I'm going to ask for, so they were making about 290,000, excuse me. And they were like, okay, I'm going to ask for about 320, right? You're excited. I'm like, well, let's get unexcited. Have you done your homework to know what the value is of the role you want in that city, that state, that industry, that organization and so forth? And then I'm like, how do you know that? So she did some her salary homework that we talked about, and she found out that the range was actually up to about 365. So 365,000. Gotcha. So just imagine how much of an idiot she would have felt and how happy the company would have been if she'd been like 320. They would have been able to sign her fast enough. So we agreed then the high that, it's about 365, say the middle, about 340 or so. And the low, as in the lowest amount that she was willing to accept, was about 325. All right. So then what that meant is her hell no was $324,000, $999.99. You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
Now you have to be honest with yourself about what your hell no is, because see, people lie to themselves. They'll say, well, I want 200,000 and I'm not going to take less 200,000. Then they haven't practiced their negotiation, so they're really confident in their work. So the company's like, we'll give you 199. And they're like, sold. And then as soon as they say that, inside they're like, I suck. Yeah. So those are the things that, people have to do. And if you want to make commentary here before I go on, I'll stop now.
Yeah, no, you can keep going. I think okay. I'm just absorbing everything you're talking about. So yeah, you got it.
Okay. All right. So, there's never just one site you should look at for this information. First of all, talk to people in your industry. If you've been a good relationship builder, some people will tell you, well, I make about this now, but those are things that, and I mean people well. I don't mean random sending messages to people on LinkedIn like, yo, how much do you make? Come on now, seriously.
So I do want to comment on that because I think, that's something that I don't know where it comes from, but it's always been considered taboo, right? To kind of have those conversations. But people are having those conversations regardless of whether you are or not. Believe that for sure.
Yeah.
So, and sometimes being able to see a peer, whether it be the organization you work in or somewhere else, to kind of have an idea, right? Because at the end of the day, it's like you're not in competition with anybody. We're just sharing facts. We're just sharing, conversation. Like you said, if it's somebody you personally know or you have a good relationship with, then it really shouldn't be a problem. So I don't know. I guess I kind of want to get out of the stigma that sometimes people have about even having it. And again, agree with you. Don't be going around asking, say, hey, how much money you make or any kind of mess like that. But, don't feel like you can never have that conversation with people, because you can.
Yeah, and here's the thing, and like for example, my case, I mean, I work at a public institution anyway. My salary is public information. Google it, you'll find it. It's fine. But my point is that, but see, that's where when people are like things have been taboo. These things have always been taboo because they benefit the company. And that's a problem, is that people have for some reason have not understood the game, because it's a game. All right, and the game is get you to work as hard as you can for as little money as possible. And I'm not upset at an organization for that. I mean, I'm really not. I mean, their business, is to make money. Your business is to make money for you. So when you're playing someone else's game, you are the game.
Say, corporate is a contact sport.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're like, well, I've always heard I shouldn't do this, I shouldn't do that. Think, who does this benefit? Not you. All right. Now, to go on though, some other things though. So different sites. So one, as I said, reach out to people, and I mean people you have personal relationships with. And to that, this is a different topic. But if you're like, well, I don't know anyone, I don't have those kind of relationships. Why have you not been investing in building relationships? That's your fault. That's not your company's fault. That's your fault. And that's your responsibility. But that's a different topic. But anyway.
Hey, don't worry. We're going to cover that topic too.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. But, LinkedIn has salary information, Glassdoor, payscale.com, salary.com. You need to look at a variety of sources. Don't just go by what one source has told you. Look at them, look at a variety, and look at it in the aggregate. And then say, okay, that's how you kind of come up with what, your midpoint, your high, your low is. Okay. Now, other things that are negotiable, though, besides money, I just talked about them. Work from home, can be a negotiable, right? I mean, that can be one of them. Childcare, if that's, these things are all money. All right. When you don't have to pay for something out of your pocket, that's equivalent of it getting in your pocket. All right. And sometimes it can be more, particularly if you aren't paying tax. It's like before tax. Okay. All right. But anyway, if you have to drive and your company pays for parking, moving expenses, your vacation, paid time off. Every industry is different. So like stock options, in my industry, getting grants, bonuses, if you have to drive your car, your cell phone, all those things, all of those are negotiables. I can't tell you, and no one else can tell you what should be important to you. You have to make a list of those things and say, okay, what else do I care about? So just to give you, and just to kind of highlight that, so I do have a client who was like, okay, so in this case, the company was offering, it was like 154 or something like that. And he knew he was worth about 168. So he was willing. But he accepted like 162. But in addition, they paid for his MBA program. And that was something that was important to him. So know the other things that matter to you besides money. And I'll mention another thing, health insurance. Don't trust a company when they just say we offer health insurance. What does that mean? It could be with mom and dad's health insurer where you're paying $1,000 a month to go for some garbage. So you need to be sure that you understand what exactly are they offering? How much do you have to pay out of pocket, for this healthcare? And how good is the healthcare? What is it? And you need to know all those things before you accept an offer. Or even if you're, this all still applies, by the way, even if you're negotiating a raise. I'll stop here unless you want me to go on.
Yeah, no, say you dropping it. So
I always want to give you a chance to don't be, all right. Yeah. Now, once you know your high, your low, your midpoint, and your hell no, your negotiables and so on, then you actually need to practice it.
Mm.
You actually need to verbally and in written form, or chat, whatever. So company says, all right, we're going to offer you, I don't know, let's suppose that the range, as I said, I'll take my friend. Yeah. So, or it was a client. And they knew they were going to ask for the 320. They found out the high was a 360, right? So when the company was like, we're going to offer you 330,000, number one, if she hadn't done her salary homework, she would have been happy about that. Then, no, she realized, no, right? So she came back at them and she was like, well, thank you very much. And this is important. Emphasize that you're excited about working in the company. So she said, thank you very much. I'm totally excited about the offer. But then she said, however, it is lower, and she did about 30,000, 35,000 lower than what I was expecting. All right. Given all the research I have done and that regarding, this role, as well as the value that I bring. And then she also went through, to practice this, name specific measurable accomplishments that, were the basis of her employment history. She didn't say things like, well, I've worked 15 years in healthcare. That's some BS. So you can be 15 years of an idiot. We all know people worked in the job a long time and they stink. So instead, she said, during my 15 years in healthcare, I have accomplished this amount. I have saved this amount of money. I have hired this number of people. I have retained this number of nurses. I have gotten this accreditation for the hospital. She named measurable accomplishments.
Yep.
And then she said, and then she asked for the, and then so she indicated, so the amount I'm looking for is, 165,000 based upon, what I've said, this is what I'm worth. And, I hope we can come to an agreement. And so then company was like, well, okay, we'd go back and negotiate, whatever. And she was like, well, I need a date. She requested a date. She was very nice about it, but because, you want to have some urgency.
For sure.
Right. To the negotiation. Right. So anyway, so then they came back and they were like, well, okay, we'll give you, I don't know, it was like 340 or something. Now, what many people do is they would say, well, okay, I'll take that. No. You don't just stop at one negotiation. No. So then she said, okay, well, let me think about that. Then she did that, went back to them again, and then negotiated. She said, okay, well, I would still would like to, get a little closer to the 365, but I also would like, it was like some additional vacation days and, some additional PTO and some other things that she cared about. Right. So she ultimately ended up with 348, but plus about but that'd be about 15 more days of, about 15 more days of PTO. And that's what she cared about. Right.
Gotcha.
But she was able to do this through extensive practice, video, in the mirror practice.
Yeah. No, I mean, so that's a great example. And, people don't always have opportunities to kind of hear about things like these unless they're literally going through the negotiations themselves. So that's why this to me is a real gem, because you really walked us through the beginning to end of how somebody has successfully done it. And I mean, you named a lot of different things, right? But quantifying, what you've accomplished, what you've brought to your organization, I think is a big piece. I think sometimes, folks feel like, well, I've been here for a long time. I deserve a raise. Like,
whatever. No, you don't. No, you don't. And I'm saying this is, I've been in my industry where a lot of people feel like that. No, that's just a load of crap. That should mean you haven't done enough to get fired yet. But that's real. I think that's a hard pill for a lot of people to swallow. But how often should you practice that, right? So because I think sometimes you can deal with the pushback once you've thought about or practiced that no, right? Because let's say you never practiced anticipating that no. When you hear it, you may not be ready for it. You may say, you know what, this is just where we're at with it, right? This is just, this is the best we can offer you. I'm sorry, I would love to do more, but I can't. I'm sorry. And then if you haven't done all that practice, you're kind of thrown off on that and say,
all right, well, I don't want to lose this opportunity, so I got to just take it, right, and just enroll. But just in my personal experience and from the folks that I've talked to about these kind of things, and it's not 100% of the time, but if an organization has the capacity to do it, and they truly see your value, they see your worth, right? They're going to do what they need to do in order to keep you.
That's absolutely true. It's like this. When a company tells you we can't do something, what they're really saying is we don't want to. It's just that simple. It is just that simple. We don't want to. Now, it could be because they really don't want to. It could be because you didn't really make the case as why you were worthy of it. I mean, that's just real. It could be. And the best analogy I can give is as a parent. All right. Yeah, as a parent, I'm a parent. Now, your kid will ask for something. And if they're a wise kid, they know that the first no isn't always no. Depends on the effectiveness of the argument. Or whether the argument, too strong a word, is the effectiveness of the debate. So my point is that, relating to work, seriously, is that before you go in for that raise or, negotiating for a new job, you need to have your arsenal ready with all the things that I just talked about and what Fela mentioned about. So many times people don't quantify what they do. And that's just inexcusable. I get it. School doesn't teach you that, but stop counting on school. Don't count on school. Life is school. So, yeah. So if company doesn't want, absolutely says no, that means they just don't want to negotiate. But it is on you to initially make the case and practicing your counter, as I gave the example with my client. And you have to practice this over and over again. One thing I like about salespeople, but see, we're all in sales, but people actually work in sales, is their whole job is overcoming objections. That's their entire job, And so that's what you have to see yourself as. You are your number one salesperson for your number one brand and the only company that you truly own, which is you. You don't own your job. You don't own that firm. You work for someone else, but you do own you. And frankly, I find that to be more important than any other job.
Awesome.
Yeah. The last thing I mentioned, particularly on video or being in person, you don't just need to practice it verbally. You need to practice your facial expressions because you need to be sure, because see, people don't negotiate with your mouth, they negotiate with your face. So, and this is me, right? So if your mouth is saying, here's why I'm worth this, but your eyes and face are saying, I'll take less. Oh, I'm negotiating with that face and I'm offering you less. So the part of the practice, the value of the video is ensuring alignment of what you're saying with your facial expressions. And this is something you have to do over and over again. And Fela did ask about when the minute that you are thinking of applying for a role, this is before you apply, or you're thinking, I want to race. Before you do anything, you need to do all the things that we talked about. So often people will be like, it's tomorrow. I'm going to ask tomorrow. Well, what'd you do today? Well, nothing. Let me know how that works out for you.
So that's awesome. I think just the examples and everything you brought out just shows how much, this is I want to say an art form, but it kind of is a bit. I mean, honestly,
it is an art. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
The reason why I can do this stuff in my sleep is not because I have some magic. I don't have any magic. It's from hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and more hours of practice.
Awesome. Just it's so many to name. I mean, you dropped so many gems, and I can't thank you enough for having this conversation. I mean, clearly, I've had the benefit of having you as a mentor and constantly drilling these thoughts and practices over the years. But there's a lot of people, and I do mean a lot of folks who have not. They don't have these kind of conversations. We don't, and it's hard if you don't have somebody in your life to be able to bounce these kind of things off of. So that's the whole purpose of this platform.
But you're not a victim if you don't. And you can, YouTube is still your friend. I'm a huge fan of YouTube. Yep. A lot of stuff that you don't know, YouTube can teach you. So don't rely on, well, I don't have this person in my life, because that's some BS. Figure it out. That's what YouTube is for.
No, facts.
I mean, you can always contact me, but if you don't do that, that's okay. It works.
I would put you above YouTube, so I'd say first Dr. Yancy, then me. So, but no, I mean, it's, for the sake of time, I mean, we could continue going on with this, and we're definitely going to have more conversations around this topic, because I think it's endless, and to really dive into more of the scenarios, kind of like how you did today. We'd love to have you come back on and talk through that. So, looking forward to the continued conversation. So, just going to really bring this to a close. Again, Dr. Yancy, thank you so much. This was, phenomenal. Really want to give you the opportunity as well to kind of share, any of your, LinkedIn or anything about your books that you may want to share with anyone's listening.
I would love to do that. Okay. So my third book, and it is written with my colleague, Dr. Delonia Cooley, who's an amazing marketing person. If you need help with branding, she is like the woman for that. But okay, so our third book this is it. It is Be Your Best Career Architect. Here are the blueprints. It's available on Amazon, and it covers, different career management strategies. Some of the things I talked about regarding salary negotiation are absolutely in here, but also like effective job hunt strategies, building relationships, your 2 to 4 year career plan, that whole 5 years, 10 years, that's all old school. It's garbage. What are you doing, in the next few? I mean, if COVID taught people nothing else, it shows you that, we got to be prepared to adapt at any time. Okay. Now, I'm very active on LinkedIn under Dr. Rochelle Parks-Yancy. Certainly reach out, be happy to share my services. I will say, don't be weird. Don't send weird messages. You don't have to send messages like, I want to know how I can service and help you. Let's all stop. It's okay, actually, if you just send a LinkedIn request and don't send any message at all. I'm good. So, but anyway, if you are going to send a message, don't be weird. Okay? So.
Don't be weird. Please, don't be creepy.
Yeah. Right. So anyway, so it's Dr. Rochelle Parks-Yancy, and I certainly cannot thank, Fela enough. He definitely embodies everything that we've talked about today. And I would definitely encourage you to not only listen to his podcast, but certainly share it with others, because it's very valuable.
Please retweet, share, all the above. So
absolutely.
But yeah, no, thank you so much. I'm gonna definitely make sure I include a link to your books as well, when this is distributed to. So that's a wrap. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate you listening, and join me next time. Hey, thanks for tuning in. For more content, please click the subscribe button and follow us on all social media platforms at How to Corporate. Until next time, keep building.